and we have a 1.5-year-old daughter. And my new band gig is waking her up with trumpet. The hit that's going on right now, Itsy Bitsy Spider, I can play in 2 octaves.
Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the BandWagon podcast for the week of March 11th, 2024. On this edition of the program, news and notes from the band world, including a new West Virginia University band facility runs into controversy, a Twitter post that actually will not make your blood boil, the Blue Hen Bands have a bit of news to share, and I have a conversation with a gentleman who is enjoying life. I'm your host, Rob Hammerton. Hello, dear listener. This week, I will confess there are an awful lot of opinions in this podcast. My opinions. They appear to have all converged on episode 3. I got thoughts about this week's news item. I got thoughts about STEM. Just a lot of opinions. But at the end, I'm going to go fishing for your opinions. Hang in for the coda when I will invite you to send me your thoughts, which I hope will be the building blocks for a segment in early April. So, empty your spit valves and away we go. Let's play the first strain. In this episode's first strain, news and notes from the band world. Dateline, Morgantown, West Virginia. This from a number of sources, including reporting by local station WXPI-TV. In 2019, West Virginia University announced plans to build a new practice facility for the Mountaineer Marching Band. Since that announcement, the location of the facility has been changed, and that's caused some angst in some corners of the university. This is mainly because the new location is 5 miles, a 15 to 20-minute drive with traffic off campus. The Pride of West Virginia has never had a practice field on its main campus. Instead, the band has run rehearsals in the WVU football stadium parking lot. A spokesman for the WVU Foundation, which is a fundraising organization, said that about 4 years ago, the foundation began fundraising efforts in support of construction of a new band practice facility, and at the time, the university planned to build it at the former baseball complex known as Hawley Field. It was after ground had been broken at the Hawley Field site in 2021 that WVU altered its plans, citing concerns about cost effectiveness, drainage, and usage priorities outside of marching season. The Hawley Field construction work never went any further. Subsequently, a privately owned facility called Milan Park offered use of its land for the new band rehearsal site at no cost to the band or the university, and here's where the angst began. Based on local news reporting and statements issued by the university and its foundation, it seems that there have been 3 major areas of stress. First, the university's pre-planning for the project appeared not to have accounted for the challenges that then caused them to throw the brakes on. A teacher of my acquaintance once invoked the phrase, "If you fail to plan, plan to fail." This isn't the only construction project in history to have run into speed bumps, but even as the university touted some of the reasons why having the band rehearse at the original Hawley Field location would still have run into logistical issues, the fact that those logistical issues appear not to have been adequately recognized before ground was broken at that location doesn't put the university in the super best light. Second area. In 2020, in a YouTube video, WVU band director Dr. Sheldon Williams said that the field would be only dedicated to the band, but a WVU spokesperson said that the facility had always been intended for shared use. Enthusiasm for a project and the excitement of the moment occasionally will cause people to express themselves in less than precisely accurate language. I know this from a certain amount of experience, no matter how careful I try to be. It's also possible that the original understanding was for the band to have exclusive use of the facility. One would like to know where the original misunderstanding came from. After the announcement of the project relocation, a Mountaineer Band FAQ webpage was updated to address a couple of issues. One was the extra strategizing to assist students with ride-sharing or bus transportation from campus to the Milan Park location, including negotiation of new routes and schedules for campus bus services and a local bus company. Additionally, WVU's School of Music is reportedly considering making adjustments to its masterclass schedule and notes that the marching band schedule might need some adjustments of its own to alleviate conflicts. But the big issue was still shared usage. The band's FAQ webpage stated that since university-raised funds were being used to construct the facility, university bands would dictate usage of the field, but that a memorandum of understanding still needed to be drafted which would outline the exclusive use of the facility by the band at necessary times and would also work out guidelines for allowed use by other outside groups. Still in place, obviously, is the WVU band's lack of an on-campus rehearsal location, so in some sense, they now have a glitzier, newer version of their previous situation, although the new site does include expanded equipment and uniform storage facilities. But it should be noted that project alteration towards shared use might no longer reflect the original pitch for alumni donations, depending on whom you ask. Which brings us to the area of contention that I'm especially interested in, again, based on some of my past experiences. Some news reporting indicated that, quote, a group of alumni decided to raise money to fund the project themselves. There wasn't any indication in that reporting whether the phrase group of alumni referred to the WVU Foundation or an outside independent group of alumni, and that would be helpful to know in order to better frame or prioritize the alumni protests that arose to such a level that the dean of WVU's College of Creative Arts had to issue a clarification letter in October. Now, local news reporting suggested that $1.5 million were raised by the, quote, group of alumni, but the band's FAQ webpage stated that fundraising undertaken by the College of Creative Arts and the WVU Foundation netted $1.25 million. Now, that $250,000 discrepancy could be a reporting error. If it's not, could that mean that indeed an independent alumni fundraising effort was happening separate from the universities? Or am I reading this wrong? If so, though, oh boy. In future episodes of this podcast, I do look forward to chatting with some folks who can address the relationship between school bands and their alumni and the universities, because every so often some well-meaning enthusiasm has been known to go a bit sideways. The university says that of its fundraising dollars, none will be given to the private Milan Park organization, and all of it is in the WVU Foundation account to be used for facility construction costs. The WVU Foundation spokesperson insisted that, quote, none of the foundation's fundraising activities were conducted under false pretenses, unquote, but he did confirm that the foundation planned to allow donors to recover their funds if they're unhappy with the location change. In any case, the first phase of the Milan Park project will be completed by August of this year, which will allow the band to practice there much sooner than it was originally anticipated, and it will indeed be identified as the WVU Pride of West Virginia practice facility. All may be well that ends well, but it sure does look like there were some lines of communication that just simply didn't open up well enough to avoid some very bruised feelings in several corners of the university. And that's news and notes from the band world for this week. If you have a news item you think should be included in this segment, send me a link via email to heybandwagon@yahoo.com. Now we'll take a quick water break and meet you on the other side. Do keep listening, please. Okay, let's pick it up with the second strain. In this week's second strain, a quote that I saw on Twitter got me thinking. Now, at the moment, Twitter, or whatever it's being called now, is not a place where you can go to get guaranteed thoughtful commentary. More and more it seems to be the online home of nah. But one of the Twitter accounts that I keep up with contained a post some time back that, well, it wasn't meant to be about band, but it really actually was about band. It was an account called Owl at the Library. We'll link it in the show notes. It's by a fellow who posts about books and writing and reading in libraries. I am drawn to this kind of thing, as well as to the band activity, and the post said this, quote, I love it when people pursue majors in literature or the arts. I love when they continue to educate themselves long after they finish formal schooling. Studying the humanities is a rejection of the mindset that says money and machines are all that matter. So, a couple of directions that this post could have been facing. 1. Pursuing scholastic study in the arts, and by extension doing the continuing education of studying and participating in the arts at whatever time in your life. Hello, community bands. I got a little experience with that. And without a lot of effort, one can compare and contrast studying literature, the arts, humanities, with their counterpart, the old STEM thing. Science, technology, engineering, maths. And to be abundantly clear, this is not to set STEM against the humanities. I'm just as much a science geek as a band geek. My dad was a chemical engineer and had all kinds of fun with any scientific topic and taught me by example that these subjects were important and good, beyond the improvement and the saving of lives that has come with scientific research and the crunching of numbers. Without scientific advancement, there are no podcasts. I was glad when someone created the acronym STEAM with the A to represent the arts, even if it did end up seeming a bit retconned, a bit, oops, we need to make nice with the artists. Whatever. The effort was made anyway, if belatedly. The other direction this post might have been going was suggested by the little quip at the end. Studying the humanities is a rejection of the mindset that says money and machines are all that matter. There are folks out there, and I am one of them, that wonder if this world might be a bit better of a place if there was more emphasis on taking care of people rather than counting beans. Where hedge sculptures mean at least as much as hedge funds. Where the term human resources is more often taken to refer to our ability to imagine, to create, to care for one another on the planet than it is to refer to a department that keeps track of how many sick days you have left. Where decisions get made based on what's best for actual people rather than on what's best for the bottom line. Where counting beans is less important than counting measures of rest. In a world that's dominated by matters of money and by levels of greed, the simple act of gathering together and making music with wind and percussion instruments might be seen as a small but potent act of pushback against the machinery of money. More and more lately, I've found reasons to feel that to suggest that being in a band is the best thing you can ever do is not that much hyperbole and is not only a statement for an individual, but a statement for the situation of the world. After I get finished with a community band rehearsal, I have laughed a lot, I've hung out with decent people who have gathered to work together to produce something, to create something which cannot be quantified on a spreadsheet, but which has undeniable positive effect. And not just a pleasant musical tune, but a communal experience which does not have an equal in the world of financial transactions and Nielsen ratings and political wrangling and, yes, podcast ad placements. Do band, or orchestra, or chorus, or theater, or visual art, or writing. But this is a band podcast, so do band. And experience something that all the captains of industry in the world cannot, at least from 9 to 5. Feel the ferocious potential of humans doing human things. Usually in concert B flat major. All right, let's grab another short break and get hydrated. And on the other side of the break, a conversation I think you'll enjoy. Okay, let's change keys and get into the trio section. This week in the trio section, I am pleased to be joined by a gentleman who's been a science teacher, a soccer coach, an ultra-marathon runner. So when I run out of gas here, he's going to keep going. And it's safe to say that he was enjoying life then, when the last time that I hung out with him, and he's enjoying life now, and you'll see what I did there. Welcome to the program, EVREN GUNDUZ.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
Now, the homework that I did suggested to me that you are currently an independent business person, an entrepreneur, and taking an idea from your collegiate and early professional days and kind of running with it. And I do want to dig into that. But first, let me open this up with a few lightning round questions so people can get a sense of who they're listening to and get a sense that after all that resume reading, I still got you on here because of your band ties. So what is or was your primary band instrument?
Trumpet, hog section.
Now, the dangerous thing about two folks who go back in history a little bit is there will be inside jokes.
There will be.
One of my questions that comes up after this one is, what's your current band-related role? And I don't know whether you have one. Are you playing at all?
Oh, I have the coolest band-related role I've ever had in my life now. So we just welcomed our daughter into the world, and we have a 1.5-year-old daughter. And my new band gig is waking her up with trumpet. So I will start. I went through a spell in my life where I stopped playing trumpet for a little while, and then we had her, and I pulled it out one day, and she was really interested in it, and just looking at it and dropping it on the ground. I'm watching the mouthpieces roll across the wood floor, and I said, maybe I should start playing this thing. And the way I decided to start was I'm going to take it out of the case. And I get her up in the morning because I love waking her up and giving her motivational speech every morning and getting her ready for the day. But I will start playing trumpet from the living room, and I will slowly get closer and closer to her bedroom door so it's not all in your face at once and she can hear it coming down the hall. And then I open the door and we will play some the hit that's going on right now, Itsy Bitsy Spider. I can play in 2 octaves. and she loves when I open the door and the trumpet's there, and she like beams at me from the crib. I bring the trumpet over. She's now pressing the little valves, and she will put the thing up to her mouth. I'll like turn it so the mouthpiece is facing her, and she will put the entire mouthpiece in her mouth. And that's how she thinks she's going to play this horn.
Not that much different from your average fourth grader starting out, really.
I was going to say, what end do I put this thing up to my face on? It's really awesome. So that's my current band gig, and it's a very joyous one.
Historically, throughout your life, what bands have you been active with?
Started with your typical fifth grade pick your instrument night. I chose trumpet because I wanted to play the saxophone. And may seem like, well, you chose the wrong instrument then, but my older brother was a saxophone player. I looked up to him. He was so cool. He was 4 or 5 years older than me, then still is now. And he was the guy I wanted to be like. And he was in the jazz band and he had long hair. And I was like, okay, I'm picking saxophone. And we went to choose your instrument night. And he said, well, I'm not going to have my dorky little brother play the same instrument as me. He said, you're going to play the trumpet. Little did I know that he had an ulterior motive that was very caring about my future. The band director in our high school was the coolest teacher, best educator in the district. And he was a trumpet player. And my brother secretly wished he had played trumpet because then he would have this guy giving him the private lessons. So I chose trumpet, did elementary bands, got into middle school, started in jazz, got into central districts and all states and did all of that because I just loved it. I was playing all the time. Now, my high school didn't have a marching band. We didn't even have a football team. It was such a small little town, Hopedale, Mass. Shout out to Hopedale. But we marched in the Memorial Day parade and we marched in the start of the Youth Baseball League parade and all that stuff. But my band director got us to band day at UMass when I was a middle schooler. And boy, was I hooked on that whole thing. So I did high school band all throughout. I got to UMass Amherst and joined the marching band immediately and was also in the jazz ensemble and was in the concert band and was in anything that needed a trumpet player. I was in it. I think I was in a ska band for a little while with some friends and then got out of college and kept playing in a bunch of community bands after college, kept that up for all of my 20s. And then I started my business when I was in my 30s. And that's when the band world started to take a backseat. And now I have my daughter and I'm back to playing.
My next question was going to be, how did you get into playing a band instrument? And there's your answer.
There's the answer. Thank you to my older brother.
So the mention of the collegiate band activity, based on what I know of the project that you fired up and which therefore sucked up your life until your 1.5-year-old sucked up your life, there's a little bit of a link there, but I want to let you tell the superhero origin story.
Started at UMass, obviously, with the UMass marching band and George Parks, our fearless leader, and all the leadership work that he did. Now, I was never a drum major, but I was fascinated with the world of drum majoring. I was on field staff in the trumpet section as a junior. Did that for 2 years, went to the field staff training, got a lot of the George Parks leadership training, got the Dr. Tim leadership training, then just got fascinated with it on a level where I was like, George, I'm not a drum major, but can I come to this thing that I've heard about, your little drum major academy? He's like, well, you don't have a role in it. I said, I don't need a role. I just want to come and see what it's all about. And he's like, great, show up. I wasn't on staff. I wasn't even an impact. I just showed up. And the first thing I did was walk around and start handing out water because the kids were sweaty and it was hot out. And then I started making little water cup images and words and of encouragement with the cups. And the kids would come over and grab a water cup and they'd get excited about what word I was going to spell out or what image I was going to make with the cups. That led to me getting into the whole impact thing and doing the sort of CIT world of Drum Major Academy, as you know. And then I went to Bands of America and did the swag thing. And then somehow found my way onto the DMA staff without ever having been a drum major. I think they made a mistake. I think they didn't look at my resume, but they accepted me. And then I did that for a number of summers and fell in love with the art of teaching leadership to teenagers. When I got my 8th grade science teaching job, which was my first job out of college, I decided on Fridays I was going to ditch the science textbooks in favor of a leadership lesson that I asked George if I could take a couple of his things and try them out with some 8th graders. He's like, yeah, go ahead, Ev. the students latched onto it. Eighth graders were loving this leadership curriculum. When they got into high school, that first class I taught, when they got into high school, a couple of them said, hey, we want to come back and help you expand this leadership stuff. And they called it the Enjoy Life curriculum. They're like, whatever you're teaching to us, Mr. Gunduz, has made us really enjoy life more. And I thought that's really interesting how leadership curriculum was giving students the sense of a more satisfying, fulfilling life. And so I latched onto that too. I said, great, you're coining this thing as enjoy life. Let's go with that phrase. And they started coming back as high schoolers, and they helped me develop this thing into an after-school club where we could get more students involved rather than just my students on a Friday afternoon. That grew to other schools wanting to have us go in and run a workshop. And that grew into me getting to the point in my life where I had a choice to make, where Enjoy Life was getting big enough that it could be a business. Like I could go around and teach this stuff to teenagers and make a living doing it. And I'll be honest, it was way more fun for me to teach leadership than it was to teach moon phases and F equals MA and prepare students for a grand old time taking a standardized MCAS test. And I just said, I want to do this on a bigger scale. It was actually 2010, not long before George passed away, that he and I went out to lunch in Amherst, and I wanted to pick his brain and say, do you think I should leave my cushy teaching job with benefits and a pension and a solid paycheck to go try and do this Enjoy Life education thing and build a business teaching leadership to teenagers in a privatized environment? And he said, oh yeah, you should definitely do that. The world needs what you're giving way more than they need science teachers. And so it was honestly maybe 4 weeks before he passed away that we had that lunch. And I said, okay, I'm going to go do this. Then he passed away. And then it felt like I lost my biggest fan. And I went back to teaching and stayed in it for 4 more years, wanting to leave, but never having the gusto to really go dig into taking the leap of faith. And then finally, I just got to the point, like I think we all get to in life when it's time to make a big change, where I just got sick of my own bull crap and said, nope, that's it, I'm doing it. And I cut the cord, left teaching, retired, resigned, whatever you want to call it, started Enjoy Life Education. And actually, what's really cool about it is that my co-founder ended up being one of those first students that I taught that first year teaching. Tom Coburn, and he was one of the ones that latched onto the curriculum back then, and one of the ones that wanted to create the after school club and bring it to other schools with me. And so he's now my co-founder on the company. And today, I'm happy to say, we now bring leadership training to teenagers all over the world.
Kind of cool, more than kind of cool that former students turn around and run back and say, and they want to stay involved with this, and they want to, they're inspired enough by whatever it was that you're hitting them with, that it inspired them to get involved that way. That's cool.
That was cool. And honestly, it wouldn't exist. It wasn't a concept that I envisioned, a business that I wanted to start way back when. This was really student driven. This was just a byproduct of how they latched onto it and what they carried forward. If it weren't for those students in that first year teaching, this wouldn't be a thing. I think that all the credit goes to them, and especially to Tom, the co-founder that I have.
Yeah. In saying yes to that, I believe that I read that the name of that was called the Ignite team. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first iteration of a formalized leadership education experience was the forming of that after-school club called the Ignite team. And that's where that was the first time we took it from just me teaching it on Fridays when we put the textbooks aside to saying, okay, let's open this up to students beyond just my classroom. And let's make it after school where we have more time and we can make it more organized. And also so that my principal doesn't get mad at me for taking time away from learning. Let's be honest. It was called we called it the Ignite team because it was just, it sounded flashy.
I wondered if it was an acronym.
It was an acronym, actually. It sounded flashy. And then the students said, it's a cool word, Mr. Gunduz, but what does it stand for? I said, it just stands for Ignite, like get excited. Let's pump up things. And they said, well, but what does it stand for? Let's make it more cryptic. And I said, well, that's kind of cool. So now we turn that into an acronym for sure. Now, are you going to ask what it is?
I'm not requiring you to reveal it if it's.
I have said so at the time when we first created the acronym, the students and I decided no one's allowed to know what it stands for unless you're in it.
Fight
Kind
Club.
of what it's Fight Club. But we really it is Fight Club. But it really did come from the swag team out at Bands of America, where and to this day I will take that to my grave. Like swag stands for something, and I will never reveal it because I buy into things, Rob. I love being a part of something bigger than myself and being a part of a culture like that. So, but I have since passed Ignite on to other teachers to continue running. I believe it's still going in Hopkinton Middle School.
The Enjoy Life organization sort of delivers its, I don't want to say delivers its product because that sounds a little bit like you're making widgets and you definitely aren't. But the activities that you use to work with students on the social emotional learning, the leadership education, the mental strength, that sort of thing. How do you do that? What are the activities that are going on?
So this is a great question. I also had trouble figuring out what is it that we do. When people ask me, what do you do? I had a hard time. So I had to really think about this. We've come down to talking in terms of experiences. So we create experiences, we deliver experiences for teenagers. And the experiences that we have currently are a summer leadership academy. This is a model that I took directly from the DMA model of a summer camp for teenagers. And it's our big overnight residential experience in leadership education. We run it at college campuses. It's 6 days, 5 nights. It's open to all high school students. And we deliver our curriculum in a really team building, experiential learning based model where we put students into small teams. DMA calls them squads. We call them teams, 8 students in a team. And the students just go through a bunch of team challenges. They go through a lot of group discussions. We bring in guest speakers, although I do the majority of the large group presentations, similar to what George did and what Heidi does and what Dr. Tim does. So that's now me and my co-founder, Tom. And it's a lot of reflection time. We do meditations, we do goal setting, and we talk about leadership and put the students in leadership positions where they learn the tensions and the triumphs of leadership. It's a lot of fun. It's a life-changing week. We've been really fortunate that the way we organized this and developed it has hit. But again, it's nothing that we developed from scratch. This summer leadership academy experience was student driven. So I took all the stuff piloted with the 8th graders way back when. And then what they loved about it and what they said, let's do that again. We just put that into the week. And it's just been developed from what the students really love. So that's our main experience. And then the other experience I run is Leadership Continuum. And that is a year-round virtual experience. So instead of being in person, we can have teenagers log into a Google Meet, and we start the workshop off on Sunday nights, and we hang out for 45 minutes, and I deliver some simple lesson for the month or for the week. And it's something that they can use immediately into their daily life. It could be a lesson on how to make better decisions. It could be a lesson on how to live in the present moment. It could be how to focus on controllables. It could be how to harness a more positive attitude in your life, something on perspective. So I give a little lesson. The students, we do breakout rooms virtually, and they go over their gratitudes, and they may talk about a place in their life this week where they really think they can implement this lesson. And then we adjourn, and then I send them a daily text message, a little start thought, a mantra. And so there's that connection all year. And it's a really cool program because that's really where you're getting that slow drip of giving students content and curriculum and a community that they can be a part of to guide their daily living all throughout the school year.
I was thinking that DMA at least has band and the band activity as it's a vehicle. underneath the radar, we slip in a lot of the things that you've taken and run with. And I guess that when I was trying to imagine what the Enjoy Life, say the Leadership Academy was like, I was wondering, do you do something similar? Are there activities you use into which you slip the lessons, or is it, or describe a little bit about how you approach that?
It's probably the thing that has been the most challenging for what we do, because having that medium that is something that students are already involved in, and you can slip leadership into the medium. It's just really simple and easy. When leadership is the medium, it's very hard for people, for teenagers, for their parents, for guidance counselors, teachers to understand and to think, okay, so it's a leadership camp for them to do what with? Whereas if it's a band camp or it's a soccer camp, you think, okay, we're just go gather all our soccer players. Of course, they need to learn how to play soccer better, and then you can slip in leadership. Of course, they need to know how to be a better member of their band or a drama camp or whatever. We don't have that medium. Leadership is the medium. So it has been a challenge, and it has forced me to think, should we have a medium? Should we change this for student athletes? Maybe it's all like, okay, we're going to apply leadership to your sports. But what we've stuck to our guns and said, no, we really want this to be leadership. And here's how we decided to frame it these days. It is like you are leading your life first and foremost. So it's leadership for your life. Your life is the medium. We have a mantra that you can't lead others until you can first lead yourself. That is a concept that George instilled in us. And we look at our whole programming, all of our experience as the medium is the life the teenagers are living. Do you want to live a great life? Do you want to be successful in all you do? Do you want to be successful in your sports team, in your band, in the classroom? Do you want to be successful in the relationships you build with your peers, with your family? Do you want to have success in your collegiate life, in your career, and just the person that you want to be? Do you want to wake up every day feeling motivated and satisfied with who you are and who you're trying to become? So it seems very meta. It seems very, especially for a teenager, for their parents, it seems like way too much, too abstract to latch onto a very concrete medium. But we've stuck to our guns, and honestly, people are starting to come around to the concept. Yeah, and I'll be honest, Rob, I think COVID has been an important piece to people understanding this, because all of a sudden, when they couldn't be in band and they couldn't do their sports and they lost all their concrete mediums, when those were taken away from teenagers, they were like, all I have is just me and my life, and it's not going well right now. And so they realized that, boy, you take away all the mediums, the truest, most concrete medium I have is just me and the life I'm leading. And if I can learn to be a leader in that, that sets all the other things up for success. So we now, in our marketing and our explanations of what we do, we bring that in as the main focus of, we are teaching students how to be a better leader to themselves first, and then using that to be a better leader to their peers and their sports, their band, all the concrete mediums afterwards. To do that, when we're at Leadership Academy, our like squad comps that DMA uses, we use team challenges. We call them our team challenges, and it's a wide variety of things. But one example is the tarp tumble, which it's a team building activity. You got to take a piece of tarp and everyone's standing on it, and you got to get the tarp from point A to point B, and no one can step off of it, and half of them are blindfolded, and only one person can talk. And we put all these different parameters around it and restrictions to force the group to have to problem solve and talk to each other and communicate through different forms of communication other than verbal. And then we time the students. And each group, each team has to do it, and they're trying to do it as fast as possible. And we put the times up, and this group did it in this time, this one did it in this one. And then we have a bunch of those throughout the week. And then we use those experiences, those challenges, to then do a discussion into leadership and how to collaborate and teamwork and all of it. So we're using some experiential-based team building challenges to teach the curriculum. And then we're doing a bunch of stuff with me getting up in front of the group and doing a demonstration on attitude and talking about, we do a demonstration on creating a vision for your life. And then the students break off into just their discussion groups, their teams again, and they build, like they actually work through building a vision of the person they want to become. And then we have a bunch of dance parties too. We just have we have a lot of fun. And so that's what a typical day and the week in the life of a Leadership Academy student looks like.
Do you have vets? Do you have people who are returning people who come back and do it again? And I think I asked the question thinking in terms of, does word of mouth function as do I want to say a recruiting tool or something that brings people into the program?
I'll answer that one first. It's almost the only way that brings people into the program, the word of mouth. Again, very difficult to describe, to use just life as the medium for learning leadership. So I'll go to the first question now. Yes, we have vets, and thank goodness we do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't planned that way, to be honest. The first pilot of Leadership Academy we ran was in the summer of 2012. We had 22 students show up. It was just a day program. We weren't doing it as an overnight or anything. I was just like, let's see if we can put this together in the summer. The next year, we were like, okay, it worked. Let's try another one of these. Let's open up registration. And we had 25 people register right away in the first week. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's spread, the word of mouth. This really does work. And then we looked, and 22 of the 25 were the exact same students that came that first year. And we thought, people want this again? And they did. They wanted to come back for the same exact experience because, and we asked them about it, why would you come do the same thing again? And they said, because for that 1 week, I have never felt so good about myself. And I just want that. I just want to feel that again. And so we ended up creating again by, not because we wanted it this way, but because the students drove this. We created a tier system, and students come back year after year. They get new curriculum the next year. And now we've got like 5, 6, 7 layers where students come back multiple. They come back in college now. At this point, 100% of our staff are homegrown. You actually can't be on staff unless you were a student first and gone through all the different levels of the program. So that's how it works now.
It speaks to the effectiveness of the program for openers.
Yes, we're very fortunate that it's been highly effective right from the start.
I was in the room when you stood up and I think for the first time chatted with the DMA kids for half an hour and
yes, I actually remember that one.
But I remember being back there and thinking, yeah, there's potential here. There's the germ of an idea for sure.
I just remember, and I've never ever and would never claim to be a great teacher, but I've always been a great student, I would say. And so when I just love to eat stuff up. I like when the notebooks of notes that I took from George, mm-hmm. and not even when he would tell us to write this down, like he wouldn't even say start thought. I just love being a student of life, of great teachers that I've had, of people anybody that's trying to impart wisdom. I just eat that stuff up. So when I am in a teaching role, which I'm constantly trying to be better at and learn about, I just I teach through the student lens. I picture me in that audience, and I kind of deliver the way I would want to be delivered to.
And the neat thing is that your students turned that around on you.
They did. They turned it completely around.
Ain't that cool?
Thank goodness, because I wouldn't know what I'd be doing. I'd be like I don't know what I'd be doing for a job.
All right. So before we finish up, let me hit you with some slightly less resume-based lightning round questions. What's one of your favorite pieces of band music that you've played, either outdoors or indoors?
Oh, I'm going to go right away. Madonna. Marching band, 2003 season, just electric. So much fun. Crowd got into it. I got into it. It's got to be it.
Another link for the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah. Put that show in the show notes. It's got to be on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah. What's a piece of band music that you haven't played, but you would like to?
West Side Story. It appeared years before I got in the band. It appeared the year after I left, and I thought, oh, that music just really hits my soul.
Hear that. Is there a band that you'd love to perform with that you haven't because either you aren't the right age or you aren't in the right place or you don't live in the right century?
The Gordon Goodwin Big Fat Band, and it's because I'm not good enough by about 100 miles, not good enough, maybe a million miles. But boy, is that band a monster big band, and I love that sound.
I'm so on the same page with you. Oh, tell me one of your favorite band stories. Keep it clean.
Oh, okay. Favorite band stories. There's a million. I'm going to go with UMass bands. We got asked to go play a halftime show at the Canadian, like professional football, their Super Bowl. We got asked to go be the halftime show, and it was on a whim. Like it was supposed to be that we performed our last show of the season. It was in November, last show of the season on a Saturday, and then band was over. Most people were preparing for, okay, the long band season's done. And George's like, hey, surprise band, we're going to Montreal. Some people were really excited like me because I couldn't get enough bands. Some people were like, grumble, grumble, I just want this to be over. But we got on buses, we drove to Montreal, and then it became the trip of a nightmare. What's that phrase where anything that could go wrong does go wrong? What's that?
That's Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law was in full effect. So we get there, it's a blizzard. We show up to the high school gym that we're supposed to stay in, and we're all sleeping in the gym, and they can't figure out how to turn the gym lights off. Couldn't turn them off, so no one slept awake. And then it was a blizzard out, so we had to go from the high school to the stadium in 2 feet of snow. Then we get to the show, we're playing the halftime show, and now it's time to board the buses and go back home. We get on the bus and someone said, everyone's hungry, Mr. Parks, like we got to feed everyone. And the food couldn't get there because of the blizzard that was ordered. So George said, we're going to run around the state. He got all the field staff and section leaders together. Everyone run around the stadium, buy everything you can find in the kiosks in the stadium. We bought 90 hot dogs. Someone came to George and said, so-and-so doesn't eat meat. And he said, tell him to eat the bun. Like, we just got to eat, just get food in people, and we're getting on the road. It's a blizzard. And we get to the border, and there was some issue with the passports, and we couldn't get back into the country. We were delayed by a few more hours. The thing I love most about that memory is George gave a small group of us a starred thought. And I know he's given this as a starred thought at DMA, but he gave it to us in context, in a real life scenario. And it resonated so hard. And this is one of my favorite start thoughts. And maybe this is going to be a lightning round question. Leaders are at their best when times are at their worst. And he was so good in this really tough situation of this trip. And I'll never forget that trip. It was one of the coolest I've ever been on, even though everything went wrong. And I learned so much from that.
There will come a time when I have a hard, challenging interview to conduct, and this is not it, because that was my next question. Have you got a favorite band life lesson that you've found useful outside of band? And
that's
hello.
Hello, that's it. Leaders are at their best when times are at their worst. And in band, it's never going to go perfect. In life, nothing's ever going to go perfect. And George used to preach this to us in band all the time. He used to say, if you want something to complain about, you came to the right place. And that's life every day. We have a choice of what we focus on, either the things that we can control or the things that we can't control. And I just think that I'm just big on choosing what we focus on in life to make our life the best it can be.
EVREN, I so appreciate you joining me today and doing this. There must be some federal law somewhere that requires podcast hosts to close an interview by asking the question, where can people find you? But where can people find you?
You can go to our website, as I'm sure a lot of people say, or our Instagram. We're big on Instagram. So website is enjoylifeeducation.org, and Instagram is at enjoylifeeducation.
EVREN GUNDUZ, CEO and co-founder of Enjoy Life Education, one of the most relentlessly positive people I know. Thanks so much for taking time for us, and continued good fortune with it.
You got it, Rob. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited that I got to dive back into the world of a happy band place.
Okay, one last break, and then we'll head for the big finish. Thank you, dear listener, for staying with me. Here comes the dogfight. This week's dogfight is actually a place that I can stick a quick reference to actual breaking news. A small disclaimer. In the run-up to the launch of the BandWagon podcast, I recorded quite a few segments in the interest of having several episodes ready to go at the start. So, for example, quite a number of interviews that you'll hear in the next few weeks were recorded, a little while ago. And then, my dream came true. As I said, actual breaking news broke this past week. I'll address this particular news in a little more fulsome detail in a future episode, as I have a tiny connection to the source of the news, and because I do, it truly will be a little weird for me to merely read excerpts from this university press release right now. But when news breaks, you get the facts out there first, and you do deeper analysis later. So here, effectively, is a bonus first strain. News and notes. Dateline, Newark, Delaware. The University of Delaware School of Music has announced that Brooke Johnson will join its faculty in fall 2024 as Director of Athletic Bands. In this position, Johnson will serve as the Director of the University of Delaware Marching Band and partner with Jim Ancona, Associate Professor of Music and Assistant Director of the UD Marching Band, to continue its long-standing tradition of musical and marching excellence. Johnson, a UD alum, returns to campus after having recently served as Director of Athletic Bands at Miami University in Ohio. She holds advanced degrees in wind conducting and music education from the University of Kansas and Appalachian State University. When asked what excites her about serving as the Director of Athletic Bands at the University of Delaware, Johnson responded, "As I step into the role of the Director of Athletic Bands, I am most excited about giving back to a program that has given me so much by providing students with memorable and rewarding opportunities." Heidi Sarver, who is stepping down after almost 3 decades leading the UDMB, said, quote, "When one has spent 29 years of their career developing a program such as the UDMB, it goes without saying how deeply personal every aspect of it becomes. When I learned that it was going to be Brooke, when she texted me and stated, 'We are signed, sealed, delivered,' I let the tears fall because I knew the program was in excellent hands. The traditions of the band and the University of Delaware are part of the fabric of her soul." Johnson is a product of the UDMB, and before she joined the band herself, she watched halftime performances while growing up in Newark. "UDMB is a family," she says, "and I'm just so grateful to be coming home." I'll be right back. To wrap up this week, let's take the coda. For the coda this week, a plea. Actually, that sounded a bit pathetic. I'm really looking for listener contributions. See, I couldn't help noticing that in just 3 weeks, it will be the week of April Fool's Day, a concept which historically I've detested. Too much opportunity for practical jokes and such that go sideways. But so many of my band memories consist of really humorous moments that band people understand, but the rest of the world may not. Maybe your band memories are the same. I would be surprised if not. So here's a question that you can answer if you like. It's not homework, but it could be your mission if you choose to accept it. Tell me a funny story from your band experience. It can be from a performance, a rehearsal, or some other environment. See if you can keep it family-friendly, because this is a family podcast. And I know that will rule out some stories, but some things just need to be. But I'd love to put together a segment full of your best stories for April Fool's Day. If the story is shorter than 90 seconds, you can tell it vocally by going to speakpipe.com/heybandwagon and recording a message. Or you can type up the story and send it in an email to heybandwagon@yahoo.com. That's BandWagon for this week. Thanks as always for downloading and listening. BandWagon was written, researched, and produced by your humble host. Musical interludes were produced by Hammerton Media from source material largely by John Philip Sousa. You can listen to more episodes at our website, heyband.podbean.com. Please give me feedback, be polite, but let me know what you like, what you think might change. Tell me your best band story, or suggest a topic for a future episode, whatever you like. You can do that using our email address, heybandwagon@yahoo.com, or leave us a 90-second voice message by going to speakpipe.com/heybandwagon. Be aware that we do reserve the right to include your message on the podcast unless you say otherwise. All those contact links and links to our news items, conversation topics, and this week's trio section guest, EVREN, and his Enjoy Life Education Inc. can be found in our show notes. Please share this show on social media, and thank you for that. If you enjoy this podcast, get someone else to listen as well. Word of mouth really is the best recruiting tool. And to keep up with us every week, subscribe to BandWagon on the Podbean app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And do please give us a 5-star review. It really helps other people to find the show. For now, take care, stay in touch, stay in tune, and we'll do this all again next week. I'm Rob Hammerton, and remember, hang up your uniform when you get home.